My research interests keep changing over a period of time. I build instruments for astronomy, basically. So if you ask what I do for a living, that's what I do, make instruments for astronomy. But that has been always not focused on a particular science topic or the other. I try to use new technologies, new developments to create new kinds of instruments which can allow you to do new kinds of science and new, observations which you couldn't have done without those technologies. So you keep changing. As part of my PhD long ago, in the 90s, I built a polarimeter. It's an imaging polarimeter. It was using certain techniques which were quite novel at that time. That was not the first time that kind of technology was used, but it was among the first such instruments. And that kind of techniques went on to become the industry standard. Now all astronomical polarimeters are built with that kind of approach in general. Then I worked on, for my postdoc, I worked on using optical fibers for astronomy, what are called 2D spectroscopy, hyperspectroscopy, imaging spectroscopy and so on. We also then worked on, for quite recently, I've been involved in the Aditya mission, Aditya L1 mission. It has 7 payloads, as all of you know. One of the payloads is a solar ultraviolet imaging telescope, which was led, the building of the telescope was led by me. I was responsible to deliver that payload for Aditya. Of course, there's a big team. Durgesh Tripathi is the PI of the science aspects of it. But it's a much bigger team, many institutions involved, including one of the early students of SESI, Avartana Ghosh, who's initially involved for a long time as part of her PhD in the design phase of the instrument, and so on. So this was my first venture into space technology development for astronomy. We are now putting forth new proposals to do other space instrumentations. So over time, my interests have been changing depending on what attracts attention and where the opportunities are and so on. So it's been a very interesting journey, never very boring, right? It has been always exciting journey. Yeah, there are many. For an astronomer or someone who builds instruments, the most memorable thing is when you first start thinking of an idea of what you want to do. It's always that simple discussion in which you think, maybe we should try that, right? That moment. That's always memorable. And the conjugate point in time is when you actually first get the data, right? You deliver the instrument and you get the data. Wow, that's another memorable moment. So these are always these amazing experiences. But I think in that kind of journey, since these fields keep changing, there's never a dearth of memorable moments in this journey, because it's always exciting, always on the tip of your toes and edges of your seat. Are we getting it right? Are we getting it right? Because when you build these instruments, unlike theory, I have great respect for my theory colleagues and my people who do observations. The loop is immediately closed in instrumentation, in the sense that you do an observation, you get some data, you get analysis and interpretation, and you come to some conclusion. Similarly with theory also, you develop some new theory to explain observations. It takes a while before you really figure out I have been right or wrong, right? The loop is not closed immediately, it takes a long time. Instrumentation, you are out there in the in the direct vision of people who is looking, this is what you promised. At the end of the day, did you deliver it? It's a very short time. And it's clear whether you delivered or not, because there is numbers. You said you will deliver in the beginning, signal to noise ratio, or other spectral resolution, or image quality, whatever performance you said, did you deliver it or not? The loop is immediately closed. This is good. This is good in the sense that you become accountable and immediately you know the results. It's also bad in a way that you are always, on your toes. Am I going to get it or am I not going to get it? Yes, which is good. It's a continuous process. Fortunately, I must say that I've had no major failures. So the kind of instruments we have been building have almost always, you won't get 100%, that is never possible. But they have met the scientific requirements we set out in the beginning to achieve. So it has not been it's been a pretty good journey so far. There's not been a big failure which you regret for a long time after that. But having said that, it's always a continuous process. There'll be some setback or the other all the time. And so I don't tend to think of them as failures. I tend to think of them as things you need to figure out and work around or solve and move forward and so on. They are part of the learning process. They are part of the achieving process rather than failures. So that's how we make steps. So for example, in the solar ultraviolet imaging telescope building, there is this thing called the thermal filter at the front, and that has to be really carefully designed because that is supposed to reject 99.9% of the solar light. The sun is so bright, so you don't want any of that light to enter your telescope. Here it's very difficult to get rid of the sun, right? When sun is out there, it's so bright. To make something so dark is very, very difficult. So you want to mostly throw most of the light out. But a small window of 200 to 400 nanometer, that window of light has to enter your payload, and only a small fraction of that light. We had many, many difficulties achieving this along the way, and you can get bothered and say, oh yeah, I've tried 4 times and I failed. No, it doesn't work. So we persist with it, and fortunately we had some very good people in the industry to work with. So they were very willing to collaborate with us and work and develop the technology, understand our requirements, and then finally get what we really want to get. So I don't tend to look at them as failures. I tend to look at them as challenges which you need to overcome to get to where you want. That's it. Young people, you keep an open mind, you try to learn as much as possible at this stage, get a solid foundation of whether you want to do theory or observation or instrumentation. You need to understand across the board what is needed. So if I say I build instruments and I only do electronics, they're not going to get anywhere. Okay, you can get somewhere, but how much you can contribute and how much you can deliver is limited. There has to be people who understand the broad range of things, irrespective of the field, irrespective of whether it's theory, observation or instrumentation. Of course, you choose to do one of them. You choose to spend most of your time in one of them. That is because you have only 24 hours, one head, 2 hands, right? So you choose to do any one of them. But keep an open eye, get your foundation right in all of them. That's the first thing for young people. As you grow through the system, there will be pressures on you to focus on one or the other, and you obviously need to do. I chose instrumentation, but even within that you keep your open mind. So you say, I did a polarimeter and in my entire life I only do polarimeters. No, you be willing to talk to people, understand what exciting things you could work on. Of course you can't do every exciting thing, but you have to end up picking and choosing. Even things which you pick and choose, you may not get funding, you may not have the right infrastructure, right technology may be not available. So you learn all this process. So keep an eye open all the time, be broad-minded, willing to talk to people and willing to take risks, right? Unless you take risks, you cannot cross boundaries. The what I call the cutting edge, it's always bleeding there. You have to take some pain, right? That's why it's called cutting edge, right, of technology. You are cutting through new areas. It's painful during the process, but once you break the new path, there's nothing better than that, right? You are there. There's no better feeling than that. So keep an open mind, willing to take risks. Don't worry if there are setbacks. Take them as challenges and move on. That's what I can tell you. The other thing I want to tell is, when I was I started out in astronomy more than 30 years ago. There are very few people who are interested in instrumentation or building facilities for astronomy. Very few students who were, it was not fashionable. Fashion thing was to do theory. Even doing observations in India at least was thought to be second. And then instrumentation, if you don't do anything else, then get into instrumentation. That used to be the general feeling. What is heartening to see now is that has changed. That has changed over time, and people are now beginning to realize there's so much of exciting things you could do in any of them. Need not be just theory or observation. In any of them, so much of exciting things you could do, and people are willing to come forward and do and experiment and try and so on, which is very good nowadays. That has changed, and I don't know if I played a role in it. Maybe by my example of being willing to work on instrumentation at that time, when I would say in India I was probably the only one working in instrumentation in astronomy at that time. There's very rarely people to build instruments, and you do tabletop experiments, you do that lab things, etc. But just building full-scale instruments and delivering them, that kind of thing was very rare at that time. But now it has become very, very possible, and it's no more an unfashionable thing to do. In fact, it's the other way around. It's most exciting thing to do nowadays. Thank you very much.